When I entered the seminary, we had a shield on the door of the seminary which was made up especially for us. And there was a motto under it. And the motto was, "The sower goes out to sow." And I thought, well, that's really appropriate because we're training to go out and preach the Word of God when we get ordained. But I really think that was a very deceptive motto because it gave the impression that the only people who are out to sow the Word were the clergy. And in point of fact, every Christian is appointed to go out and sow the Word. What is the Word? That's the question. St. John says in the first chapter of his Gospel, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." And then a few lines later he says, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us." So the Word of God, as we would say it today, is the person of Christ. God, in a sense, sowed himself among his creation in order to bring us to health and to life. And the seed that was sown is Jesus of Nazareth, the Christ. Well, that's very fine if you lived in the time of Jesus of Nazareth, who was the Christ. But what about the rest of us for the last 2,000 years or more? The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And the Word took up his habitation, not just in that person of Nazareth, but in everyone who has become his brother or sister by baptism. So the Word now in the world that is sown in the world like seeds in the field is us. We are the Word of God that is out in the world, or as Jesus says in another place, we're like grains of yeast that are out sown in the world in order to bring the world up, to give it life. So it's not just the people who go into seminaries and are sent out to preach, but it's every baptized person who is the seed of God in the world. Now, what did Jesus do? What was his task to be the seed of God? He was to show us what God was like. "If you see me, you see the Father," Jesus said. So for us, it's exactly the same calling. To see us is to see Christ. To see Christ is to see the Father. Jesus is the revelation of what God is really like. And the Christian people, called by baptism, have the same vocation to tell the world what God is like by the way we live together in our lives, in our families, in our monasteries, wherever we are. We are the seed that is sown. And if we allow weeds and all kinds of things to grow up and choke us, that's our fault. But we are still the Word of God sown in the world because Christ is living in us and he is the Word of God.